There's typically not a ton to glean from the NFL preseason regarding the top of the depth chart, but if you look hard enough, you can come away with some takeaways. Today, we're looking into 5 fantasy options whose stock rose or fell following the preseason. But before we dig in, head over to 4for4.com, use promo code YouTube to get yourself 25% off any subscription plan.
Look for, and Flacco almost gets sacked. There he goes, throws on the run, caught inside the 30, inside the 20 goes Jerome Ford. Still on his feet. Ford looking for the end zone. Gets there.
As anticipated, it was announced that Nick Chubb will begin the season on the PUP list, keeping him out of action until at least week 5 of the regular season. There's absolutely nothing guaranteeing that Chubb completely recovers from his second devastating knee injury. Heading into his age 29 campaign, the running back may end up slowing down simply due to his hefty career workload. There's a chance that Chubb will return by the end of the year, maybe mid-season, and be firmly planted into a committee approach with Jerome Ford, D'Onta Foreman, and others. After a scary neck injury earlier this preseason, Foreman ended up leaving the final preseason game with a rib injury, while Pierre Strong Jr. is dealing with his own rib issues. Behind them, Nyheim Hines was kept out of the entirety of training camp and may also not be activated from the non-football injury list. The last man standing is Jerome Ford. Ford made the most out of his sophomore year opportunities, jumping up the depth chart and racking up over 1,100 total yards on 248 touches. After Chubb went down in week 2, Ford took control of the backfield, logging 51.5% of the snaps and 39.1% of the rushing attempts from weeks 3 to 18, finishing as the RB 22.5 PPR points during that span. He's a very sensible selection at the RB 37 draft cost, and he's down in the double-digit rounds for now. That could end up spiking after the Chubb news, but this has looked like his job to lose for months now. He should be targeted anytime he drops at or below his ADP. The Browns' offensive line is returning both Jedrick Wills and Jack Conklin from their own injury bouts, which should help strengthen Ford's outlook as well. If the team ends up signing a veteran back following the Strong and Foreman setbacks, be sure to buy the dip.
Yeah. The 48, flagged down. Pocket escape by May, and flings it on the run because he's got a man downfield, and KJ Osborne's in the end zone.
Drake Maye took over the North Carolina starting role in 2022 and finished in the top 5 in program history in passing yards and passing touchdowns. He also added over 1,500 yards on the ground with 16 more touchdowns, eclipsing 50 yards on 15 occasions. At 6'4", 223 pounds, seeing his large frame in the open field is one reason why people have comped him to Josh Allen. He has enough speed to gobble up the open areas of the field when he breaks the pocket. Maye finished the 2022 and 2023 seasons ranked 3rd in this draft class in runs of 10-plus yards, with 32 in 2022 and 24 in 2023. This is why it wasn't surprising to see him take off with the ball 7 times for 32 yards and a touchdown during the preseason. He also looked strong as a passer, completing 2 deep balls either while on the move or being forced to climb the pocket. The issue for his fantasy aspirations are, of course, the fact Jacoby Brissett is still listed higher than him on the depth chart. But the combination of Brissett's need to operate out of a clean pocket and this below-average offensive line came to a head in week 3 of the preseason. Brissett took a sack and ended up with an injury to his throwing shoulder, something that could open the door for the rookie to see time sooner rather than later. The wide receiver room is certainly one of the worst in the league, but the team at least injected some talent by taking Jalen Polk in the 2nd round and Javon Baker in the 4th round of the NFL draft. That means there is some upside here for the Patriots pass catchers, and that paired with Maye's ability to take off with the ball should put him on streaming radars throughout the season. Brissett will do his best to hold off the rookie, but if he's getting ragdolled, unable to deal with edge rushers behind this offensive line, we could see Maye by the end of September.
Well inside field goal range, lofted up, Godwin, touchdown, Tampa Bay, Godwin.
A veteran with Chris Godwin's tenure rarely gets any sort of boost or downgrade following preseason action, but in this case, his usage should be considered a positive. Godwin was definitely consistent in 2023, but maybe too consistent. He scored between 6 and 11.5 PPR points in 70% of his games and only eclipsed 16 points once. He had bettered that number on 10 occasions in the previous 2 years, even though he had missed a combined 5 games. The most obvious correlation here is the retirement of Tom Brady and the installation of Baker Mayfield, but he was also used much differently last fall. After working out of the slot on 66.9%, 70.4%, and 72.9% of his routes during the Brady era, That rate dropped to only 37% in 2023, and he was still productive on those slot snaps. Among 57 receivers who earned at least 40 targets out of the slot, Godwin finished 21st with 8.8 yards per target, 23rd with 12.9 yards per reception, and 13th with a 0.36 EPA per target. The good news is Godwin will be returning to his home back in the slot. Early in the offseason process, receiver coach Brian McClendon was quoted as saying, quote, "Right now, Chris is going to be moved back to the slot pretty much the majority of the time," end quote. In Godwin's single preseason appearance, he played in 7 snaps, with 6 coming out of the slot. This should give the veteran more of a chance to string together big plays and use his yards after catch ability. Coming into last season, Godwin was averaged 5.6 yards after the catch over his career, but was limited to a 4.6 mark in 2023. Some big plays from time to time would help him break out of that consistently mediocre production we saw last season.
So he'll get a lot of carries. Jones in some trouble in the end zone, and it's intercepted, and a touchdown! Jalen Petrie for 6, and the Texans grab the lead.
I have long been a proponent of Daniel Jones in fantasy, but it might be time to look at myself in the mirror and admit the truth. Outside of super deep best ball tournaments where you're trying to have incredibly unique builds, why even bother? Even in deep superflex or 2 QB leagues, it's probably just not worth the hassle. But the team did go out and grab an incredible talent in wide receiver Malik Neighbors. They decided to forego the offensive line entirely, opted to address the problem through free agency. Through the 3 preseason games, the Giants allowed the 4th most pressures, even though they played their starting lineup for an entirety of a half in the second game and the first quarter of the first game. On the plus side, Neighbors has shown that he could be able to elevate his quarterback's play. The rookie took his 6 targets for 54 yards on 4 receptions in the preseason, including a disgusting sideline catch. Is it enough to push Jones onto our radars? It seems unlikely. Behind Neighbors, we have the likes of Jalen Hyatt, Wan'Dale Robinson, Darius Slayton, and Miles Boykin. At running back, we have journeyman Devin Singletary, Eric Gray, and 5th rounder Tyrone Tracy. My dynasty shares of Daniel Jones don't want to hear it, but there are probably better odds that he outright loses his job than he becomes a top 15 option in 2024.
From the 32-yard line. Ball's out. Oh, the ball is out. He lost it. The Ravens all around it. Who has it? Baltimore.
The Kansas City Chiefs are once again projected to be one of the best offenses in the league, with a return to their 2022 form very much a possibility. But outside of Isaiah Pacheco, it's difficult to pin down exactly who is going to be absorbing touches out of the backfield. Clyde Edwards-Helaire was the only option with real NFL experience, and the team brought him back on a 1-year, $1.7 million contract back in April. The Chiefs didn't do much to assess the situation behind him in free agency or during the NFL draft, but with CEH missing weeks of practice and all but 4 snaps of the preseason, it's fair to wonder whether he has really locked up the RB2 slot. The real stud of the Chiefs preseason was UDFA fullback Carson Steele. Steele would string together a number of powerful runs, bowling people over and doing his best to emulate Pacheco's aggressive running style. Will a rookie fullback truly take over the RB2 role in Kansas City over the entire season? It seems unlikely, but the fact that we're even considering it shows what we think about Edwards-Helaire and his ability to lock this role in. Among 58 qualified running backs last season, CEH ranked 55th with his 3.2 yards per carry and 54th with 2.30 yards created after contact. Behind the same offensive line, Pacheco ranked 10th and 18th, respectively, in those same metrics. The fact that Edwards-Helaire couldn't show out in preseason to re-earn a spot on the roster means that the RB2 situation is still up in the air.